Only one team can do it, but we've got two teams that we think should be strongly considered to open up the new NFL season, facing off against Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. That and more on this episode of Locked On NFL.
You are Locked On NFL, your daily NFL podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, everybody, to this Friday episode of Locked On NFL, your daily podcast covering the National Football League, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks so much for making Locked On NFL your first listen of the day every day. Don't forget that you can subscribe for free on YouTube or wherever you're listening to this podcast. I'm David Harrison. He is Tony Wiggins. We are on Twitter at dharrison82 and at Talking Shop Wig. Both of us are credentialed members of the media. Tony is covering the Jacksonville Jaguars for Locked On Jags, and he has been doing so for over 16 years now. I am entering my third year covering the Washington Commanders, hosting Locked On Commanders, my 10th year overall covering the National Football League. Locked On NFL is here for you every Monday through Friday, along with our everydayers and everydayers. As always, we greatly appreciate your continued support for the program, for this network, and your favorite Locked On channels. On today's episode, we are talking about the NFL schedule. It was supposed to be released on Thursday, May 9th. Unfortunately, it was delayed until May 15th. That's okay, though. We're going to take a look at the schedule. We're going to talk about some things that we want to see when the schedule is officially released, Wig, and we're going to start it off with the season opener, the Super Bowl champions. It's kind of become, I don't know if it's really an official tradition now, but it's kind of become the unofficial or official tradition. The Super Bowl champion gets to host the opening game of the NFL schedule. Happens on Thursday night. Kansas City Chiefs, they're going to be hosting somebody, Wig. On their schedule, they got the Broncos, the Chargers, the Raiders, their three divisional foes, the Denver Broncos, Los Angeles Chargers, Las Vegas Raiders. But then they also have the Baltimore Ravens, the Cincinnati Bengals, the Houston Texans, the New Orleans Saints, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, all scheduled to visit Arrowhead in the 2024 NFL season. Wig, which one of those do you want to see open up the season in Kansas City?
It's a close one, man. And thank you for having me, by the way, again. I said that like I'm not a co-host. It's a close one. The easy one would be for me to say the Chargers because they play them twice, and we want to see Harbaugh back, and we get a chance to see this brand of Harbaugh football with two great quarterbacks. But I'm not going to go the easy route. I'm going to say I want the Houston Texans because I cover the Jaguars, the new hot team of the NFL. I want the Houston Texans to go up there, and I want the Kansas City Chiefs to remind them of exactly who they are. They're the Houston Texans. They are not this upstart, and I'm saying this with a little bit of a joke, but they're not this upstart hotshot that everybody thinks. But I do believe the intrigue with Houston, with the GOAT quarterback and with that young king that's coming, I just think that Houston and Kansas City would be an ideal matchup on week one.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, that's a really good matchup. And I'll be honest with you, that's not one of the easy button answers, right? Because I think the two easy button answers are the Cincinnati Bengals and the Baltimore Ravens. You come from the AFC North, you got the two kind of real, just kind of known for toughness type of teams to go in there and face off against Kansas City Chiefs. But I like the Texans, like you said, like the young upstart team, D'Amico Ryans, the hottest head coach I think right now in the National Football League, CJ Stroud coming in there. I mean, you're hearing conversations right now, and this is really kind of the mark of knowing that you've kind of made it in the National Football League. And I know CJ still got to do it for another season and really kind of prove himself completely. But I was watching Jayden Daniels, the number 2 overall pick from this year's NFL draft. We'll talk about him here in just a little bit. But he was doing an interview with Keyshawn Johnson on All Facts, No Breaks, his podcast, YouTube show, and all that stuff. And Keyshawn was basically warning him, like, hey, bro, not everybody can be CJ Stroud. So if you're CJ Stroud and you're being talked about in that light of not everybody can be you, that just shows kind of really how special what you did in your rookie season was. Set a rookie single game record for passing against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last year. And then also, again, brought the Houston Texans out of the cellar of the AFC South, took them to the playoffs. I mean, just a great rookie season. So, yeah, I mean, I would love to see the Houston Texans open up against Kansas City Chiefs. I am going to go easy button here, though, Wig. I'm going to go with one of the Bengals or the Ravens. And I've kind of been going back and forth. I think the Ravens is like the biggest easy button. AFC Championship game rematch, Lamar Jackson. It's right there. I mean, and nobody would blame the NFL for doing it. But I want to see Joe Burrow and the Bengals go into Kansas City week 1 for 2 reasons. One, the Bengals beat the Chiefs. The last team to keep the Chiefs from winning the Super Bowl was Cincinnati Bengals. However, also, I want to see Joe Burrow against Patrick Mahomes before Joe Burrow gets hurt again. So let's put that week 1. Ooh. I don't think the Bengals are going to roll him out there preseason. So let's put the Bengals week 1 so we can make sure we get our Joe Burrow versus Patrick Mahomes matchup. That's the reason I'm going Cincinnati Bengals.
My man James Rapine is never Locked On NFL and Locked On Bengals. He ain't gonna never live down the fact that, that's when we were on the show together at the time, and he sent me a video. I don't know, he didn't send it to me. He posted a tweet, and I'm a big National Geographic guy, right? Mm-hmm. And I get an absolute kick out of when one of those lions gets lost, or when a hyena gets lost and they run into the herd or the pride of the other group, and there's just this one dude. And I remember this training camp video, Joe Burrow running, and it looked like the entire defense, not the 11 on the field. It looked like the entire defense on that side of the Bengals practice facility was running and chasing him. And it reminded me of when one of those hyenas got lost and he ran into a crowd of lions and they surrounded him. And I've been teasing James Rapine about that for years. I'm like, that dude's going to have to run for his life forever. Now, I will say this. I feel better about him not getting hurt this year because I think they signed, I know they have Orlando Brown Jr., Baby Zeus is what I call him. They drafted Amarius Mims. Mm-hmm. So one of those guys is 6'6", 340. The other guy is 6'6", 342 or 6'7", 342. They're the small members of that offensive line because I think they signed Trent Brown and he's 6'8", 350. So when I'm looking at all three of those dudes, Joe Burrow better not get hurt this year because there's nothing else you can do. You just put like the 7th, 8th, and 9th wonders of the world on the offensive line, and we're hoping that this dude don't get hit. I was just wondering whether they're going to sign Mekhi Becton yet, since they got everybody else that's 6'7", 340 pounds. So I think they've gone a long way to try to protect him, and I'm eager to see it too. I thought about the Bengals, but the reason why I didn't put the Bengals, because I know Joe ain't going to play in the preseason. That's just too much pressure to come out the gate against Chris Jones. Yeah.
Yeah, that is a lot. No, I think the Bengals have done a good job, like you said, of trying to protect Joe Burrow. I mean, some of those injuries, though, that one last year in training camp, just a normal routine drill and just came up limping. We'll see what Joe Burrow can do. I'll tell you what, Wig, this is a little bit out there, right? This is like a little bit of a left field pick, but I almost wanted to pick the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But the reason I didn't go with the Buccaneers is because I can't find, my Google skills aren't good enough. I don't know who is broadcasting that game. Because I'll tell you what, if Fox Sports is broadcasting it, who's the number one broadcast team now for Fox Sports? Tom Brady's on that thing, right?
Right.
Last team to beat the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You put the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Kansas City, you put Tom Brady in the broadcast booth, and maybe we get a little bit of a Netflix special type of situation going on. So I almost wanted to go with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but that's only if Fox is broadcasting that game, which I could not confirm, which is why I didn't go there.
Got a question. Is this going to be a Monday nighter?
I think it's always Thursday night. Like I said, it's the unofficial tradition, but I think it's always Thursday night. Yeah.
So it's not the traditional night game crew. It might be a Fox night game. Is that
right? It might be like a Fox, but it's on Thursday night. Or gotcha. That's the part of the unofficial that I'm not 100% sure of, because I don't think it's on Peacock, because I read a CBS article and they didn't put in there that CBS or Peacock was broadcasting, and if they were, they absolutely would have broadcast that. So interesting enough, but we'll see who's going to open up the season in Kansas City against the defending Super Bowl champions, as the Kansas City Chiefs try to kickstart their third straight Super Bowl championship campaign. Would be the first time in NFL history that an NFL team was able to win 3 straight Super Bowls. Coming up next, we're going to talk about number 1 versus number 2. When should Caleb Williams and Jayden Daniels face off on the gridiron for the first time? Revenge games and the possibility of an 18-game regular season in the National Football League. All of that's coming up next on today's episode of Locked On NFL, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Wouldn't it be great if you could see all your investment and retirement accounts in just one place? With Yahoo Finance, you can consolidate your views from multiple accounts into one hub and access the expert analysis you need to tend to your entire portfolio with confidence. All right, so I got an example, right? I'm sitting here and I have one laptop open with one window, another laptop open with another, because for some reason, every time I click off the window, it kind of refreshes itself and that defeats the purpose. Doesn't happen when you use Yahoo Finance. For 25 years, Yahoo Finance has been the brand behind every great investor. If you're a great investor, you need to also be able to use your time wisely while looking at those investments, and Yahoo Finance is where that can happen. For comprehensive financial news and analysis, visit the brand behind every great investor, yahoofinance.com, the number one financial destination, yahoofinance.com. That's yahoofinance.com. And passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need and the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available for U.S. customers.
Thanks again for making Locked On NFL your first listen, your first view today and every day. Thanks for coming through all the time like you do. Make sure you come back on Monday. Kevin Ostreicher of Locked On Ravens will be back here with us as we continue our coverage of the National Football League and all the biggest stories going on around it. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your television all day long and find yourself having to turn the television down when all the shouting begins? Well, make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Continuing our conversation here, previewing next week's NFL schedule reveal. And Tony, I wanted to talk about, so we talked about the Super Bowl champions opening up at home, Kansas City Chiefs, who they should be facing off against and why. Now I want to talk about the number 1 and number 2 overall picks in the NFL draft, because it's not every year that we get quarterbacks back-to-back number 1, number 2. But when we do, it's also not every time we do that they actually face off against each other. But this year, the Chicago Bears are going to face the Washington Commanders in Washington. So Caleb Williams, the number 1 overall pick, will face Jayden Daniels, the number 2 overall pick, assuming that both of them are starting, which I think for the Chicago Bears is pretty much said and done. The Washington Commanders have kind of taken the approach of we don't feel like we're in a rush. We'll put him out there when he's ready. But Wig, I've got a little bit of experience with this. I covered Jameis Winston and Marcus Mariota. Jameis Winston, number 1 overall out of Florida State, going to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Marcus Mariota out of the Oregon Ducks going to the Tennessee Titans. And the NFL scheduled them week 1 against each other. The Tennessee Titans, Tampa Bay Buccaneers faced off week 1, number 1 pick, number 2 pick, first games of both careers. The Tennessee Titans beat the brakes off the Buccaneers. Jameis Winston's first career pass was an interception. It was great. But I remember Wig watching that game, and I'm covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the time. And I thought, okay, outside of the fact that this is number 1, number 2 overall, it was an ugly game. It was just an ugly, ugly game. And you basically tell both these teams are being quarterbacked by quarterbacks that had very little experience. So I kind of look at this, Wig, and I don't think the NFL should put the number 1, number 2 pick up against each other in week 1. I think they need to give it some time, let both of these guys get their feet under them a little bit, get their teams around them a little bit, put this matchup later in the schedule and let them have some time to get their feet under them and make it a potentially true heavyweight bout. So I want to know your opinion on it. When do you feel like would be enough time that the NFL could wait to have Caleb Williams and Jayden Daniels face off for the first time?
Ideally, I agree with you that it needs to build up, right? However, in 2021, when both Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson were rookies, they did meet in that year, but it was in December. And the Jets won 26-21. But the luster was worn off because by then, the Jaguars had secured the number 1 pick in the draft all over again. Nobody was thinking about those two dudes. In fact, it was the feel sorry for me, Bo, because both of them had seemingly gone to horrible organizations. So I think if you're going to get that squeeze out of it, you better do it early because you know what? One of those guys might stink 8 weeks into the season, or the teams are so far removed from that one-on-one matchup being any good that people might not forget. You know, it's like giving a kid NIL money just to come to your school, but he stinks. He ain't getting no money the second year, right? So the only squeeze he had was, hey, I'm here, give me my money. So you got to almost sometimes take advantage of it when you can. But I like the thought that you're thinking, hey, man, let's build this thing up. Let's not try to make this bird of magic. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Let's not make this, well, should I say Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese? Let's not make this that.
There you go.
Because sometimes we attempt to manufacture things when we should just kind of let them happen a little bit. So I think I'll lean on your side and say, don't go for the low-hanging fruit. Just wait until those guys have established themselves, and then maybe they'll have something to line up and talk about.
Yeah, no, I like that. I forgot about Zach Wilson and Trevor Lawrence. It's easy to forget about Zach Wilson these days. It is. But you know what? I think we're both on the good end here. So I've covered a team and the NFL did this right away. We covered a team that did it more towards the end of the regular season. I don't think either of those work. Wig, I'm kind of feeling week 5. You know what I mean? Give these teams 4 weeks, the first quarter.
Week 3, week 4. Yeah, get the kinks out.
Can't really break it evenly in quarters anymore. But yeah, I mean, even week 3, give them at least a couple of games. Obviously, you have the preseason, but give them a couple of games. Just let it kind of flow. And honestly, Bears Commanders, let's be honest, outside of Bears fans, Commanders fans, how many national fans are going to want to watch it? Maybe you throw it on Thursday Night Football, week 4, week 5. Something like that, and you kind of force everybody. Now, at least people want to come and see, okay, well, let me see this number 1 overall pick and this number 2 overall pick. The Drake May fans are going to want to see Jayden fall flat on his face, and the anti-painting your nails fans are going to want to see Caleb Williams fall flat on his face. That's and amazing. All those things too. So it'll be interesting again to see what the NFL decides to do there. So
to add to what you just said, last year the matchup between Bryce Young and CJ Stroud occurred in week 8.
Yeah.
And it was a 15-13 Houston win. I'm sorry, a 15-13 Carolina win. One of their only 2 wins all year. That's the game where a lot of Jaguar fans looked at CJ Stroud's stats and said, oh, y'all saying this the dude, the next coming up. And then he proceeded to go out and go ballistic after that. So, yeah, I remember that very, very well because people were they wanted to see him fail. And then folks were like, they're already asking Dave Tepper about CJ Stroud. Now, what if they actually lose to him? So it's almost like good for Bryce Young. You beat him. You know what I mean? But they were one of the worst teams in the league. So it rarely happens. And it'll be interesting to see. I think for that to really make any noise, though, there would have had to been some thought in Chicago of actually taking Jayden. And we don't have any idea that was going to happen. Yeah. But what if the kid struggles in Chicago and then Jayden, because there's a whole new division in the East and guys don't know anything about those offensive coordinators. So you can probably manipulate something and get off to a little quick start and jump out on people. What if that happens when they do meet? Let's just say it's week 7 and Washington's 5-2 and the Bears are struggling. Ooh, you're going to get all of this noise, man. Where would they play? Would they play in Washington or Chicago?
They play in Washington. Yep.
Oh, yeah, man. You'd hear so much noise. You know, this kid coming back home, Caleb's coming back home, but they stink. And you know what? We're happy with the guy that we got. You know, it'll feel like a little bit. It'll feel like the city of Chicago was in love with Isaiah Thomas, who played for Detroit, but he was a Chicago native until they got their guy. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And it's going to be something that we need to monitor. And I think it's a very good idea for you to bring that up.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be interesting to see how they do that. But we also have some other interesting games out there, Wig. Revenge games. I love revenge games. Every single year we see teams, ever since the invention of free agency, we see players change teams. And sometimes they go to teams that are rivals of the teams that drafted them or that they've been playing for. And I love revenge games. I want to watch them all, but we're going to pick our favorite revenge games of the upcoming schedule and talk about the possibility of an 18-game schedule in the NFL coming up sooner maybe than any of us think it could be. That's coming up next on today's episode of Locked On NFL, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's show is brought to you and sponsored by BetterHelp. I have had numerous reasons to go into therapy, and trust me, it helped me every single time. Death in the family, divorce, a lot of reasons why you would normally think people need a whole bunch of help and therapy. But what about time management? What about when you don't have the time that you need to spend with your loved ones? It could create a little certain amount of guilt. Well, guess what? BetterHelp can definitely help you with that. You can get online therapy. You can get therapy with BetterHelp. If you're thinking of starting BetterHelp, you might as well give it a try. Please, please, please understand that they're there to help you. And then even though you're doing it over the phone, you can switch therapists if for some reason you want to try someone different. It's entirely online, designed to be flexible and suited to your schedule. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedon to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon.
Wrapping up this episode of Locked On NFL, Tony Wiggins, David Harrison here, talking about the 2024 NFL schedule. We've got some things that we've discussed. The Kansas City Chiefs opening up the season as Super Bowl champions. Number 1, number 2 overall pick, Jayden Daniels, Caleb Williams, almost said Caleb May. So Jayden Daniels, number 2 overall pick, will be hosting the number 1 overall pick, Caleb Williams, and the Chicago Bears at some point. But we've got a bunch of revenge games going on this season. Players moving, coach grudges, team grudges. Which revenge game do you think absolutely 100% absolutely needs to happen in primetime in 2024?
Calvin Ridley playing against the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Titans and the Titans, as well as the Jags playing for a number of reasons. The playoff position in the division for the last 2 years has come down to a Tennessee Jaguar game. And the home team won both times. And when the home team won last year, Jacksonville went home, right? Now, much to the chagrin of Titans fans, because Tyler Rowland has made it known that had they lost that game, they would have picked higher, which they would have got Joe Alt, right? And that's why they didn't get Joe Alt. But the thing is I just think with the whole Ridley trying to re-sign with Jacksonville and at the last minute signing with the rival and taking the money and going, and then some of the things that's been said back and forth, well, let's see what's happening. Let's come on, Calvin. Let's see what's going on. There's been a bunch of talk about the Jaguars not knowing how to use them, and I was here. Trust me, that wasn't the problem. But that's the game. Not as if a Jaguar-Titans game wasn't already something that we want to see, because we do, especially those people down here. Those games are really good, and we want the national people to see just how competitive and how good they're. Like I said, the last 2 years, the last game, week number 18, it has been those two teams playing to see who goes or who goes home. Mm-hmm. And I really do think everybody's missing out, because it is a downright nasty rivalry.
Those are good games. I'll tell you what, we watched that game. So we were in the FedEx Field press box, and everybody in the press box was watching that Titans-Jags game as we were getting ready to watch the Commanders lose to the Dallas Cowboys to finish their pathetic season last year. And that was a really good game. The year before, almost sad that the game I was covering was starting because we couldn't watch the very end of it, which was upsetting. But yeah.
Well, the year before, I was actually in the DMV in PG County watching the game when the Jaguars won. I was actually, so it must be something between them two and the city of DC, because I was there. I'm telling you.
Yeah. No, those are definitely really good games. I'm looking forward to seeing the Eagles and the Giants in New Jersey. Saquon Barkley returning to MetLife.
Yeah, man.
That whole thing has just been, I mean, I get that fans get upset, but Giants fans came at Saquon Barkley a certain kind of way. Tiki Barber came at Saquon Barkley a certain kind of way, and it continued. Saquon even tweeted a month or so after the signing happened. He's like, "You guys are still on this. Like, what is going on here?" That is going to be one heck of a crowd. I kind of wish I was covering that game, to be quite honest with you. But even if I can just watch it on television, that is going to be an interesting atmosphere when Saquon Barkley returns to face the New York Giants in MetLife for the first time. And then finally, not happening this year, but Roger Goodell, right around draft time, he kind of got lost in all the draft conversation, all but basically told everybody there's going to be an 18-game regular season, give or take, a couple of years here. Current CBA does not allow the owners to institute an 18-game regular season, but that doesn't mean that can't change at any given moment. Roger Goodell's also talked about, if there is an 18-game regular season, he would probably like to eliminate the preseason, at least one game, if not the entire preseason altogether. He said he doesn't really like the preseason. Joe Burrow tweeted out 18 games, 2 bye weeks. Wig, what do you think about the 18 games? What do you think about eliminating the preseason, or at least one game, another game from the preseason? And what do you think about adding a second bye week like Joe Burrow recommended?
Get rid of the preseason, replace it with joint agreed upon intra-squad scrimmages.
Mm-hmm.
You can do 2 of those with 2 different teams. You can make that geographic. Make sure that whoever you do an intra-squad scrimmage with isn't on your schedule. Or you can try to figure out a creative way to do intra-squad scrimmages with certain players. Because in the NFL, you always want to monetize and incentivize everything. Okay? Right. With certain players that play for visiting teams, get them close to their college and try to make something out of that. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Since the NFL has always done it. But I really, really do. The preseason, let me tell you what happens in the preseason. You know this as well as I do because you credentialed and go to games just like me. That first one feels like you just got married, you just had a new baby, first day on vacation. The last preseason game, you know what it feels like? It feels like you're on a plane leaving Vegas and the lady comes over on the thing and goes, "We got cocktails if anybody wants them." And everybody goes, "No." That's what it feels like. The second and third preseason game feel like somebody offering you a drink as you're on the plane leaving Vegas. Like, are you kidding me? I don't ever want to see liquor again. That's what it is. So I think I'd be down for obviously the first thing that everybody's going to say, and I'm being facetious, we got to think about player safety and player health. Yeah, right. Y'all think about money. But since they're going to throw that in, yeah, if you want to add to some postseason games, get rid of the preseason games. And here's the justification: because more people get hurt when you're trying not to get hurt than when they're actually going full speed. How about that? There you go.
Yep. I think Joe Burrow's on something though, Wig. I think if the NFL adds an 18th regular season game, I think you need to add a bye week in there. I think you need to have one bye week in the first 9 weeks, a bye week in the second 9 weeks. And plus that'll help Roger Goodell extend things out a little bit because he wants to get the Super Bowl to happen President's Day weekend. You know, you can move training camp another week so it doesn't cut into the players' off-season time and just have everything move. And then our quote-unquote dead period shrinks by a week and we're happier and NFL fans are happier.
You know what else?
More football. What's up?
You know what else? Here's what else can happen. Make sure that when you stretch this out with those 2 bye weeks that a team doesn't play on Sunday and then play again on Thursday. That needs to go away if we're talking about player safety. That is, to me, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, that needs to be the first thing they do. Forget the 18th game, get rid of Thursday Night Football or figure out a better way to do it or something. Or, only coming off of a bye or something. I don't know, something crazy. But yeah, either way, move the NFL Scouting Combine another week, move the NFL Draft out another week, and we'll be the old people we talk about when the NFL Draft used to happen in April instead of the first weekend of May. So a lot of good stuff coming in. Look, 18 games is probably going to happen. So at some point, you're going to talk about how Jeff Fisher could never get his team above 9-9 instead of 8-8. But for now, that's going to wrap up this episode and this week at Locked On NFL. Make sure you come back Monday. Kevin Ostreicher of Locked On Ravens. We'll be back with a whole new episode for your second listen of the day. Check out Locked On Jags, Locked On Commanders, or stay right here, and we'll send you over to Locked On Sports Today, the first ever 24/7 sports streaming channel on YouTube. As always, thank you for making Locked On NFL your first listen or view today and every day. Thanks for coming through like you do. For Tony Wiggins, I'm David Harrison. We will see you right back here next Friday for another episode of Locked On NFL, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.